Hey YouTube, I'm driving seems like always these days. So I thought I'd make a quick video because I get asked this question a lot by a lot of my friends. And if you don't already know, I'm kind of a dealership hater. That's why I like to call them stealerships, because they do prey on people that are not as knowledgeable when it comes to vehicles, and they have this great mentality of getting you psyched out, like, oh, I gotta have the fear of missing out, I gotta have the newest, latest, and greatest vehicle, and the old ones are all breaking, and so you don't want that. And that's like a trap that I think a lot of people kind of fall into, because they just assume that all old cars are junk and they're gonna break. Well, the truth is, all cars break. All cars have problems, and new cars have just as many problems as old cars. You'll find that there'll be new cars pulled on the side of the road over, and you'll see ones that are super old. Now, there are some trouble cars that I'll mention briefly, like the Plymouth/Dodge Neon. When was the last time you saw one of those? Those cars were absolute garbage, and they were made in Mexico. They had a lot of problems, and again, that's why they're mostly all in junkyards and landfills, because they had horrible resale value and they just didn't do well. Another car that's not the greatest is Volkswagen Bugs, the new ones. That I say new meaning like the next generation that came out in around early 2000s. Those also you don't see very often, because those also were garbage. Volkswagen, I know some people, you either love Volkswagen or you hate them. My buddy had a GTI a couple years back, and the cost for ownership for that, with some of the stuff that he had to swap out for parts, were disgusting. Another buddy had a Rabbit, and just a regular Rabbit that they had. That car had all kinds of problems, and the parts were it was hard to work on, and which is one of the ways I gauge vehicles, is how hard is it to work on, and how much do the parts cost, and how often do those things go out. So that to say, new versus used, I will always tell people to buy used, and here's why. There are some vehicles, like I'm going to pick on Toyota because I'm a huge Toyota fan. I'm driving one right now. Toyotas have a great resale value. They hold on to their value, and they always have. So this Tundra that I bought, I got it is a 2008, and I have had it since 2020, so 4 years, and I've had zero problems with it. I bought it with 220,000 miles, and let's see what it is I have right now. Okay, so 242. All right, that's pretty impressive. So 4 years, I put 24,000 miles on this vehicle, not a single problem. I take that back. I had a coil pack that I had to change out, which was $50, and it took all of 5 minutes. And that was just, I got an engine code, and I was like, oh yeah, it's so simple. I forgot about that one. But other than changing the oil and the regular stuff, that's it. I haven't even changed the plugs on this thing or the transmission fluid, which we'll get to in a different video. But used wise, I've had no issues with this truck whatsoever. I just recently bought a Toyota Corolla in '99 from one of my friends. That I got for very, very cheap, because they were just getting rid of it. It had some wear things that normally happen to most cars, but otherwise I've had to just do some cosmetic things, and the starter is starting to go out, so I got to work on changing the starter. That's not a big job, and it's going to be something for my kid to drive anyway. So here's what I figure. When we look at the math, let's say I paid $1,000 for that car, okay? So $1,000, the car is out, I've got it, and I need to spend like $300 on it, or maybe $500. Well, if I had a car payment of like at least $300 to $500 a month, something could still go wrong with that new car. And they go, oh, we got you in a warranty. Well, the dealerships just want to sell you a car. They want to get you into a financing situation where you owe them tons of money per month, and that's it. You're in and out. They want you in and out of there quick, and they're going to do the bare minimum to take care of your car, because honestly, I know they pretend like they care, but they don't. Dealerships are one of the most shady things I've ever dealt with in my life, which is why I have bought many cars from Facebook Marketplace, or from Craigslist, or from the most recent one, I think I've sold most all of them from Craigslist. That goes back to, if you're trying to get a new car, don't get a brand new car. Look at the used Toyotas or used Hondas, and if you ask some good questions, you can actually do extremely well. That isn't to say that it's not going to break. There are things that happen with cars. Like, all vehicles do have issues. But there are some trouble spots. So there's a website I would suggest everybody go to, and it's called carcomplaints.com. People all the time, they always say, what kind of vehicle do you like to drive? And I always say Toyota or Honda. Notice I didn't say I want it to be comfortable, or I like the way the seats feel, or I like the way it looks. There are some really cool, if I picked what I liked to drive because of looks, I would drive a Dodge Challenger. I love the way that car looks. There is no way on earth I'm going to own a Dodge Challenger. I also like the way Nissan Altimas look. Those are pretty slick too, and they drive great. But I will never own a Nissan because I hate working on them. And they have a CVT transmission, which is also a piece of junk. And here's the deal. I don't want to spend, while I have a, this YouTube channel for working on cars, I don't actually want to spend all my time working on cars. I want to spend time with my kids and do the other things that I like to do. But if I have to do car stuff, I'm going to do it simple and quick, get it done, and do it right so I don't have to do it again. So all that to say, I have never bought a used car, or a new car in my life, and I never will. Because as soon as you drive it off the lot, you're dropping value. And not a little value, thousands of dollars. So if its sticker price is like $50,000, you drive it off the lot, and like a year later you go, I want something different. You know what you're gonna do? You're gonna pay, or they're gonna pay you like 40 grand for that car. So you're gonna lose like $10,000 in a year. That'd be the equivalent of getting like a $5,000 piece of junk car, driving it, throwing it away in 6 months, and then doing the same thing again. And again, most used Toyotas are not going to break like that. So let me give you a couple examples of cars that I feel like have a very good history and track record, because people, even if you're looking for one for your kid, you're like, what should I get for my kid? Well, again, the phrase always is it depends. So what do you need out of the car? If you want to go super fast, then I would not suggest getting a little 4-cylinder engine in a Toyota, because those don't go super fast. But you have to realize, if you want something high and souped up, you're going to also pay the price for it, because high performance vehicles have high performance vehicle problems, like turbos. Turbos do make engines wear out faster. They just put more pressure on the head, and it causes issues. So if you really want a turbo, get a turbo. Don't get one that someone stuck on there themselves because they don't know what they're doing. Have one that someone like Toyota or Honda put on there from factory, and I don't know if they've been doing that in the last, gosh, it hasn't been a while since I've seen an actual turbo bolted on from stock. But all that to say, if you wanted to go turbo, that would be an idea. But otherwise, if you want to get a V6 or V8, there's some things, like, for example, let me backtrack. The new Tundras have turbos, twin turbos in their V6s. And there's all kinds of problems with those initially out the gate. So whatever model you want to get, whatever it is, even if it's the new Challenger, or the, I say new, but it's relatively new. If you wanted to get one of those, the first thing you need to consider is the first year of any series of cars, that trim, that model, is going to be problematic. There's going to be some things that they're going to go, well, it looks really sexy, but we're not sure exactly how this is going to go, so let's just sell like 1 million of them, and then we'll do some recalls and see what happens. And because they're in the business to sell cars, okay? And that's what the manufacturers do. They just get rid of the cars because they know that a certain percentage of things will break, and so they're willing to accept that. And then the next time they actually have another set of vehicles, they'll go ahead and like, let's say the next year, they'll go, oh, we need to fix this little thing on the light, and this particular thing failed, so we're going to swap that out with a new sensor, and then we're good. So if you look at carcomplaints.com, you'll see, pick like a Toyota Camry, look at the years, and you'll see it like go down like this, and they go up, and they go down again, and they go up, and then trickle down. The reason it does that is because that first year has problems. An example is also like this Tundra. This is a 2008. The 2007 was the first year that this particular Tundra trim was available. The 2007 and 8 had a 4.7 liter V8, which is a smaller V8. It's not underpowered unless you're trying to pull a space shuttle, but I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to pull like a 26-foot trailer, and I've done it successfully for thousands of miles, so there is no question that it works fine. But everybody in this country likes to go bigger, better, and I want a big giant V8, and so you can get the 5.7, and it's an incredibly good engine too, very reliable. There are two known Toyotas of this exact model I'm driving that have gone 1 million miles on the original transmission and the original engine. I say that because that tells you that Toyota has longevity. They know how to make vehicles, and they've been doing it a long time. I've had an 85 Camry in the past. That car did great, and that was, again, we had an 85 Toyota Tercel. That car, when I was a kid, was also a good car and reliable. So over the years, Toyota has continuously improved their models. And I would say almost every Toyota out there you could probably grab used. Look at those numbers. The key things you want to look for in most things in life is, when it comes to the vehicle's life, how many vehicle owners have there been? And when you pop the hood and you look under there, like I used to do this with Hondas all the time, you look at a Civic and there's all kinds of like aftermarket bolted on stuff. Usually it's bright blue or red or white, and it's like, or chrome painty. The dealerships, or the manufacturers, never do that. They just put everything like pretty black plastic and they just leave it there. They don't need to soup it up. But people that want to soup those cars up, what they end up doing is just poorly tuning a car, like bolting stuff on and thinking it's going to make them go faster. You want to avoid that. If you see that when you're going to buy a used car, say, yeah, thanks, I appreciate your time, and I'm out of here. So you don't want to deal with that. The next thing is mileage. People freak out about mileage. One of the tricks I like to do is, again, I like to spend my money in the market of cars that are right around, nowadays it's probably like $6,000 to $10,000 for the car's cost. And that's because I don't want to spend a ton of money, and I'm comfortable with that range. I, in the past, have spent like 10, 15 years ago, $3,000 for cars. Usually my rule of thumb is, does the AC work? Does the heater work? Is it burning oil? When you check in the back, when you start the car, is there blue smoke coming out? That's a huge problem. Is there black smoke coming out? Does it stink when it starts up out in the, you just start it, let it run, and go out and smell it. And it's gonna smell a little bit like gasoline, but it should clear up very quickly. And once you drive it, it shouldn't smell bad at all. There should be no smoke coming out of the car. When you do pop a hood and you look underneath it, you don't have to know everything you're looking for. You're looking for clean, you're looking for not leaks or drips. You're looking for it to look like it's just an engine, but there is no like dark or wet gooey spots anywhere, because that would suggest there's a leak or something is not being maintained. If it's clean and wiped down, that's usually good. Although again, dealerships a lot of times at the used car lots, they will pressure wash the inside of the engine bay to look really great, and then they'll sell you this absolute piece of junk. So there are some used cars that I would totally, completely avoid, and one of them is actually one of my favorite cars, which is a Honda Civic. The 2001 Honda Civic automatic transmission should never be something that someone would even give you. That car was notorious for having the transmission fail. It's because they got too hot, and between, I think, gears 1 and 2, they would slip, and it caused all kinds of problems. So do not buy a Honda Civic 2001, and even the 2002s-ish, those had the same kind of problem. If it's a stick shift, go for it. I love Hondas. They're incredibly fun, and those cars, in some ways, I feel like they're almost like, they're just more fun. I love Civics. I love, from the door handles on the 93, which is what I used to have, to the way the engine bay looks, and working on them is pretty simple. So I find that that's probably one of the best, just used runaround cars that you want for like maybe a kid, or if you're just going around. But another question is, people ask me about these Teslas, and they're like, what do you think about the Teslas? Well, the truth is, I think they look pretty cool, but that is obviously, if you've been listening, not how I pick vehicles. Let's go back in history. I have seen recently some old muscle cars on the road. Those old muscle cars very likely could have the same original engine or something very similar. They call them crate motors, which is just a motor that GM sells for like $1,000 or $2,000, maybe a little bit more. They drop them in there. They're brand new engines. They'll run for 100,000, maybe 200,000 miles. Okay, they're great. I say that because that's an easy swap. If you have any idea of how complicated the Tesla is to operate for maintenance, you have no idea how any of that electronic stuff works, because it hasn't been out that long. Also, none of the other shops, you can't just go to like Joe's garage in the middle of nowhere because it breaks down and go, hey, can you fix my Tesla? No, they don't have a clue. They're going to need more of a voltmeter than they are going to have of an oil gauge. So it's a big challenge to find someone to work on it. So that makes you tied to a dealership. Plus, like Elon Musk or not, the dude's in it to make money and to make himself, whatever, stroke his ego. And there was a news article where there was a Cybertruck that was over in Russia that had a 50 cal, I think, bolted on it. And Elon Musk remotely shut down that car. Or I say Elon Musk, someone at Tesla. It might not have been him. But either way, that's crap. Nobody can touch my car and turn it off. Now, again, some of the brand new models, they also have remote control. And I don't want any part of that. Nobody can turn off my Tundra. There's just no way to do that because I don't have any kind of electronic system that talks to anybody outside. I don't want that. Now, Tesla, that is all they do. They actually patch the car remotely, and they have, a wireless connection to Tesla to have all their proprietary stuff upgraded. I've heard of people that bought one, and they go, oh yeah, I got a Tesla, but it only does this much distance because I didn't pay for this particular, the battery could go longer or have more distance on their driving, but they don't have that because they didn't pay for it. I'm like, that is so sleazy. I just don't like that practice whatsoever. But even that said, you're dealing with a car that's extremely heavy, so it's not a bad thing, but it does wear tires more. So if you get a Tesla, plan on going through more tires. That's just how it works. You're not really saving the earth by driving a Tesla. I'm sorry to say, if you think you are, well, you're still consuming electricity, and electricity is generated a lot by coal and other ways of nuclear power. So this isn't to get political, but don't think you're saving the earth by driving your Tesla. That's just not happening. The fuel that we burn these days with catalytic converters makes our engines pretty dadgum clean. So there's very little exhaust that's coming out of the tailpipe that's destroying this world. And that's all I'll say about that. But the biggest problem for me is the life of a battery. These cars are using lithium-ion batteries as their main mechanism to be charged. So if you've ever had a lithium-ion, they have, I want to say, 1,000-ish cycles to charge and uncharge, or 10,000. And it's kind of like a range, depending on hot and cold and other things. Like if it's freezing outside and you start charging a lithium-ion battery, it'll destroy it. There are safeguards in the Tesla to prevent that from happening. So they've already covered those things. But my point is that these batteries are new technology and they cost a lot of money. And they're not going to last forever. If you guys ever have done any kind of batteries for like your Xbox controller, like AA's, you've seen over the history of not a long lifetime, we've seen nickel cadmium batteries and then nickel metal hydroxide. And then they started switching to lithium ion. And then there's a new iron phosphate. Anyway, iron phosphate. So there's multiple different kinds of batteries since I've been alive in the last, just say, 30 years, okay? That said, they've changed the tech because those nickel cadmium batteries are garbage. They just didn't hold a charge. Nickel metal hydrides were a little bit better, but not great. So they're going to come out with, I think actually the latest news I've seen is sodium batteries that they're working on in China. The lithium ions that we have are cool, but they're very dangerous. You've seen the videos probably recently where they're catching on fire in Florida because of water contacting them, and that's dangerous in itself. You could take a truck, like this truck, float it down a river, and it ain't gonna catch on fire. That's not gonna happen. Okay, I wouldn't suggest doing that, but it's not gonna catch on fire. These vehicles are built by a company that has been making cars for a long time. Toyota has been making cars for years and years and years and years. Tesla has been doing this for just a short period of time. Okay, and so what Tesla should have done if they were smart and weren't egotistical is they should have said, hey, we have a rockin' system. Like their transmission setup for how they manage the battery and all of the energy that's transferred, that transfer system, the charging, all of that proprietary stuff, super cool, very effective. They should have just sold that to all the folks and said, hey, you want an electric car? Boom. Instead of having Chevy do their own thing and Nissan doing their own thing and all that. But that's not what happened. Tesla wanted to have their own car, so they have accomplished that. And I see a lot of Teslas around right now. That is a very common car that I see. But I have a feeling that in about 10 to 15 years, they're going to start disappearing. And the reason is because, like I said, the battery life for those vehicles is going to be shorter than you expect. Now, if you do the math on how much electricity costs you, that again depends on where you live. So, should you buy a Tesla? Well, if you live in an area where you have 500 solar panels in your backyard and you charge your own system and you're that kind of guy, electricity is free for you. So that'd be kind of a fun project. I'd have a Tesla if someone gave me one and said, hey, let's try this. This would be cool. Okay. But if I'm living in, like, I don't know, somewhere that's maybe rural that I didn't have that opportunity and my electric bill was really expensive, do I want to go with a Tesla? Well, I got to always kind of plan. There's a gas station everywhere in Nebraska. There's not a electric station everywhere in Nebraska. Now, if you live in California, then, well, you have your own set of problems. But if you live in California, then there's a lot of green initiatives and stuff. And gas is also like $2 or $3 more than everybody else pays, it seems like. So you may be better off that way. But again, it's because the government is, trying to control that situation. They want you to switch to that electric vehicle, which blows my mind. But that is what we're dealing with, is that people want these electric cars because they feel like that is going to save the earth. So, okay, whatever. But I don't see those lasting that long. So to me, I think it's more of a novelty. A gasoline internal combustion engine, or a diesel engine, is going to last a long time. My little Corolla that I got, that thing is 24 years old, 25 years old, and that engine works just fine. Doesn't burn any oil. It runs great. You're not going to say that about a 25-year-old battery. I mean, that's not going to happen. There's no Tesla battery that's going to be running just fine in 25 years. I doubt it. And if I'm wrong, Musk, send me a free one and I'll drive it begrudgingly every day to work with a big bumper sticker that says I was wrong. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, so I say stay out of the business of electric cars. It's really a cool niche, but it's going to take some time to really make that solid. Now, that said, do I think the future is electric? It'll be something like that. I mean, gasoline internal engines, I've always had a problem. When I was, I was about 22, I went over to India, and I saw this 3-cylinder car that they had. It was like, I think it was a diesel. And this is little tiny thing, but it got like great gas mileage, and I thought, man, like, how come I can't have that in the United States? And I know one of the, I don't want to say conspiracies, but really they want us to have these super safe cars, but I don't think they really want us to have cars that get super great gas mileage, because they want to charge us a bunch of money to buy gasoline. And the oil companies have been around for a long time. They've been, I mean, think about it. In the Bush era, I mean, he was in bed with the oil companies. All Texas oil, right? So the only time is when we get a Democrat in, all of a sudden oil prices go up. And why is that? Because we have, they want to push their green initiatives, but not, gasoline burning. Well, although ironically, I just drove by the gas station, and the gas it's dropped recently 50 cents. And I thought, that's kind of interesting, because why would gas drop suddenly? And I'm like, oh, wait, I know, the election. And people then would say, wait a minute, what? The election? Come on, that's conspiracy. No, you don't think that the people up high have friends. Like, I have friends, they just aren't up high. They're just like, hey, can you fix this from my, fence? Or do you know how to do this electrical work on my house? Wiring and such? Yeah, those are the friends that I have, I don't have any friends like, hey, could you adjust the oil prices? But I'm sure those people are real, and they do exist, and they most certainly do have influence. So if I was the Supreme Chancellor of the United States and I was like, I want to keep my power in, I would definitely call some of my amigos and be like, hey, broski, do me a favor and let's keep the gas down just a little bit for the next month. I know it's going to cost you $7 million, but meh, we make pretty much all the money anyway, so whatever. And then boom, everybody goes, oh wow, because human beings are so funny, they forget so quickly that they go, oh, look at gas, it's cheap. Like, nobody remembers it. Like, Trump gas was dirt cheap. Like, it was cheaper than a gallon of milk. Like, we could have literally fed our kids, gasoline for their cereal and been cheaper. But no, nobody remembers that. So human beings tend to just forget everything. They look at, it's like, well, what is that? Very, and it's sad, but it's just a reality of how we humans are. We forget very, very quickly. And so I wonder if they're like, hey, lower the gas, because we're not going to talk about the fact that it's been like, 60, 75 cents more the last, 4 years, and then concentrate on, but now it's cheap, so everything is great, right? So that does happen, but in my opinion. But back to what I think the best cars are. If we talk about like a 2008, 2007 Toyota Camry, that sounds like a pretty solid vehicle. Now, if you have to live somewhere where there's snow and ice and all that other crap, you have to figure out, do you want to do tires? Do you want to, that are like snow tires? Do you have a set of those? Do you want to have an all-wheel drive? My only hesitation with all-wheel drive is people get like bigger than Jesus. They're like, oh yeah, I got all-wheel drive, baby, let's go. I've watched 2 Subarus crash into each other, and I'm kind of a Subaru hater, and the reason is because people drive them like they're snowmobiles. They're like, oh yeah, it's a Subaru, it's all-wheel drive. I'm like, yeah, but your tires are garbage. Like, that's absolutely stupid. That's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of terrible analogies that I can think of, and none of them are appropriate. But it's an awful idea. So, not a fan of Subaru. But I am a fan of reliable vehicles, and not to say that Subarus aren't, but read the history about their head gaskets and the design of the engine that they will not change from, which is this boxer style engine that's flat. That one is a pain in the neck to work on. If you've ever tried, which I have, they are not fun. And I like to have fun. And I find that certain vehicles are just manufactured and built and engineered very well. And I'll probably do a couple of videos on Chevys versus Toyotas versus Hondas versus Dodge and the things that I dislike and like about all of those. But the fact of the matter is, used Toyotas and used Hondas are where it's at. That is why people go, why are they so expensive when they're not even new? There's a reason. When we talked about mileage earlier, 100,000 miles is nothing on a Toyota. Now that said, if you're gonna go used, just double check, Google it, find out if the car has a timing chain. If it has a timing chain, then you are just fine no matter how old that car is. But if you happen to get like a Honda, that's like a Honda 2004 Civic, that has a timing belt. Belt meaning like it's not made out of metal. It does wear and it does break. If it does break, you can say goodbye to your engine because it breaks. The pistons slam into the top part of the engine, which is the valves. When that happens, it ain't running, and you got to pull the whole thing apart and rebuild at least the top end. So that is not cheap, because all I've talked about in this channel is making things simple and easy. I promise you that is not an easy job. I pulled the head off of a 96 Civic. That alone was a fun task, but I do not want to do that again. So that said, avoid that thing, and if the car is running and you're like, I love this car, find out when they change the timing belt. How do you find out? It's not easy. That's the problem. A lot of car repair shops are cool, and they'll be like, hey, we're gonna make this little sticker, we're gonna stick it on the actual timing belt cover, which is somewhere in your engine bay. And I always tell people, if you're not sure, we have a wonderful world of Google now. You don't have to know everything. Used to, you had to be like, well, I've never seen this before, so I'm gonna have to find out. That's not the case. You literally go, oh, I see that this has, what I need. This has a Google search and it's got this thing. So yeah, let's go with that. Because Google has the ability to tell you, like, do a schematic or a diagram of a 93 Pontiac Sunfire or something, if that even still existed. But if you had that, it would show you, oh look, there it is. That's what I'm looking for. So that makes it a lot easier. So look for anything that's a sticker that says timing belt changed at that time. They last about, I say 60 to 90,000. But I have to tell you, I've seen them last up to 120, and you just don't want them to break, okay? But that said, if you get a vehicle and you're like, I need to get a new one, then it depends on how old the vehicle, or how the vehicle is made, where the complexity differs to how much the job costs. For example, like a 93 Honda Civic. I loved that car. That was my very first car, and that was a lot of fun to drive. It was about, back in the day, it was about $300 to get a new timing belt, because what they would do is they would go there on the side, pull all the belts off, replace all the belts, because there's like the power steering had a belt, the air conditioning had a belt, and there was also a timing belt. So those all were swapped out, and then there was a water pump that you had to take off to get to the timing belt. So they'd say, hey, you want to just go ahead and let's get you a new water pump anyway. So water pumps never fail on Civics, and the reason why is because they've been swapped out like a million times. Because if you're doing it every 60 to 70 or 60 to 90,000 miles, then that's done. So that is why you need to look at the timing belt if it has one. The other thing is, certain things to avoid are, like I said, look for engines that are known to have problems or known issues for specific types of cars. There are cars that are just known to be junk. And so, like I said, that Dodge Plymouth Neon, those were just junk, okay? If you're really hell-bent on a Chevy or a Ford or something else, like I said, go to thecarcomplaints.com and look it up. Used to, I would say, go to Consumer Reports, but I feel like they've kind of sold out. And Car Complaints is basically people saying, hey, I bought this car and the stupid starter stopped after like this many miles. And then that could be an anomaly, because that could happen to anybody, right? I mean, humidity, temperature, elevation, driving, whatever, fire, but something crazy. But if you have 500 people having the same problem, then you go, this sounds like a systemic issue, so maybe I should avoid this car or this thing. There are some cars that have weird things that just occur because of the way they designed a hose, or the way like when they said, I think it was the Crown Vics that would explode because you'd slam into them from the back. Well, it's because the way they had the mounted gas tank in the back. And so if they changed that one thing, then it'd stop exploding. But you'd want to avoid that. I'm trying to think of other issues, like some of the Dodges in the most recent years have really crappy brakes, and those brakes are just cheap metal from China, and that's why they're crappy. It's not even the fact that they have a weird design. It's the brake caliper system's been around forever, but that's what they have done, is they've just used cheap crappy parts, and so their stuff breaks more. And I always kind of wonder if they ever really test a lot of their stuff, or they go, it's like that, so we'll just leave it there. Everybody's buying them, so whatever. But yeah, I can't say more than just Toyotas and Hondas, because that's all I drive. I have a Pilot. That's what I like to. My wife drives with the kids because I needed something with plenty of seats for everybody. And then the Tundra, of course, because I need to pull the trailer. And then my kid is getting that Corolla once he's driving. But when we get to a little bit later, my next kid down the line starts to drive. If the Corolla is still around, great. If not, I will probably be buying a used Honda CR-V, or a used, maybe a Civic, or an Accord, or a Toyota Camry, or a Corolla, or a RAV4. That's kind of what I stick with. I look at those cars and I go, I like what I see, because I don't see a lot of them in shops. I don't have to fix a lot of them. And on Car Complaints, pick the year and don't settle. Like my Pilot, I bought that and I was like, I was kind of in a hurry. I actually bought it from CarMax, which wasn't a bad experience. It was actually a very good experience. So I would buy from CarMax again, because I was like, okay, it was going to be like 16 grand. We traded in the Chevy Equinox that my wife had, and so we got that swapped out because I was trying to get our vehicles settled. And again, we had so many seats, we needed at least 6 seats. So we got that done, and I didn't research there's a few things I don't like about the Pilot. One of them, the seats, there's some flaw in the way they're built, and if you get any water on those regular cloth seats, it looks like someone spilled coffee on them. And it's just water, but it's awful. Read about it. It's systemic. It's terrible. We want to get rid of it just for that, because seat covers are just such a pain in the neck. The other thing is the transmission. There's a transmission issue that I don't know exactly what's causing it, but it'll shift weird. And it had like 70,000 miles when we bought it. It shouldn't shift weird, but there's a known issue that there are issues with the transmission for the year 2013. So my next car will not be a 2013 Pilot, but I like what I work on with that car. It's very easy to do. So I'm going to get a 2014 or 15 Pilot that shouldn't have that problem, because whatever was the issue with the guy that didn't show up and do his job right, or whatever, the machine was whack, there's something screwy with the transmission. And the only fix that I've found to get it to stop doing that is every like 10,000 miles, I do a drain and fill. When I do that, it stops. But after about 10,000 miles, it starts, my wife calls it chugging, but it just doesn't really want to shift at the right time. And so I don't want to tear the car apart. I'm going to end up probably just doing a CarMax swap or selling it on Craigslist and letting someone know, hey, just change the transmission fluid, because that's how this thing likes to be. But otherwise, it's been super reliable. This guy's driving around with his door open. What the heck? Man, this world is a funny place. So, like I said, I'm trying to do more content because I love cars. I love garages. I love America. I love guns. I love making arrows. I love God most of all, so you will see videos coming out about my faith and why that means so much to me. And if you don't agree, that's totally okay. I mean, I would always say give faith a shot, because you haven't before, and maybe if you did, you could have totally like given it just like a, man, I went to church once, or someone dragged me there somewhere. Just like people hate working on cars because they're like, well, it was a bad experience. Like, well, not everything. Yeah, there's some car experiences that I've had that have been bad experiences working on, and I'd never want to do that one again. So that to say, this channel is basically for you to ask questions. I'm trying my very best to post comments back to people when you comment, so thanks for your time. And I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can actually get this channel back to monetized, because it used to be years ago, and then YouTube kind of screwed me over, and everybody else, I was a small little fish, and said, no, you have to have 1,000 subscribers and all these hours in order to get paid. I'm like, bro, you guys owe me money, and never paid me out. So thanks a lot, YouTube, but we'll see if we can get that back. But that said, so if you can like and subscribe, that would, I hate when people say that, but I see why. It's just a money generating thing, and I like to use it to buy different equipment and test different stuff. So if you have questions, you're like, hey, try this thing, or what do you think about this? Ask me, because I like this medium. I like this forum. This is a really cool way to, I've had some discussions about even like, a couple years back when I had a vasectomy, dudes would ask questions, or they'd be like, oh, thank God, I'm not the only one. And I like that, because we all live in this world together, and I want to help people, and I don't like when people get screwed over like by dealerships. So the worst thing you can do is have a vasectomy by a dealership. So anyway, have a good day. I gotta go, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Hit some comments. Thanks, guys, and have a great time.